Hey y'all, welcome to the Big Mama Was Wrong podcast. I'm your host Marisha, and here we dive into wellness and growth surrounding mental health and culture. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, it's Marisha again here for another episode of Big Mama Was Wrong. And today I probably tell y'all more than once that I'm super excited about my guest. And this is going to be another time that I say that I'm excited because I'm with one of my besties who is Esther Gaines. And I'm going to let her introduce herself and then we're just going to hop in.
Hi, I'm Esther Gaines. I am Esther, which entails I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, all the things. She told me to introduce myself. I'm like, what does that mean? I like to take pictures. I like to have fun with everybody, but I'm also aware and sensitive to who everybody is. So,
I think that's a
um,
pretty accurate introduction. You know, some people could have been like, "Yeah, this is what I do. My hobbies are." It's however you wanted to introduce yourself. I'm from.
oh yeah, I am from Raleigh. Technically, I'm a Navy baby. Been there the longest, but I am now in Jacksonville, which is quite a big difference.
Onslow, Onslow County.
But it's all good. I'm getting adjusted. It's much quieter, less traffic, less stress. So I ain't mad at it.
Oh, good. I grew up in the country, so you already know. I
Yes.
understand. But if you follow my social media and you see pictures of my friends, most of the time, if you see a picture with Esther in it, you're gonna say that she's my friend. That's the quiet storm, and that's really how I feel like that's what I feel like she embodies the most because you can sense she's very calm, she's very quiet, but she's also very wise, and she's definitely not one to play with when it comes to things of the spirit. So that's why I refer to you as my quiet storm friend. It's like don't let
All
the
right
glasses
now.
fool you. Yeah.
All right.
You will take the glasses off. Okay. So today we're gonna be talking about navigating friendships as adults, which is like an interesting conversation,
Mm,
specifically as it relates to us, because I think whenever our relationship was like improved, not really improving because it wasn't bad, but whenever we were growing closer together, you were preparing to move. And then I just moved to Raleigh 2 years ago. So it's like, man, dang. Whenever we
yeah.
had the opportunity to like be in the same city, things changed. But even with the distance, it didn't impact like our presence in each other's lives or even showing up in friendships. And I've seen like a lot of posting memes and say like, oh well, if I call my friend and they don't call me back within this time, then that's a red flag. And I think it's just been a lot of different perspectives and outlooks on how adults feel like friendship should look.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on each individual. And, I mean, there's a lot of different factors that play into your perspective on friendship, your childhood friendships, your how you navigated friendships, middle school, high school, college, you learning yourself, how you've changed yourself, so therefore your circle changes, even geographically, if you've moved, or for me, like even with like different groups, moving from from one ministry to another, like all those things affect perspectives on friendships, how other people responded to
Hmm.
you changing. So it's hard because I don't think we give each other enough grace to change.
That's good. I agree with that, but I've also come to learn, and I think you and I discussed it briefly in another conversation where it was like friendships that are organic, that weren't necessarily like birthed from or out of just a common space, tend to have more of those type of areas of grace and more authenticity in the friendships. Like you and I were in the same, I guess you could say, circles to some degree because of poetry, but our
Yeah,
friendship didn't come out of poetry. And so
right.
you see like our friendship showing up in different areas, whereas some friends that I've had that like it came out of poetry and that seemed to be the focal point of our friendship.
Yeah,
Those relationships, not that they haven't lasted, but the authenticity of them haven't been the same,
yeah.
and the strength of them haven't been the same.
No doubt. I was thinking about that before we got on here in terms of, I think one of my regrets, and everything is to be learned from. But I think wish I would have formulated or had more friendships outside of ministry than I
Mm-hmm.
did in ministry. A lot of my friendships from when I was younger to now have all come from ministry. Not to say that's a bad thing, but when you transition and you get to see, like, dang, did we really only just connect because we went to church together? Like, we didn't hang outside? Like, I'm like just thinking of how many people I am still like genuinely connected to, and we like talk. I can't say regular basis because you know my life, but when we do talk, it's like us, how deep we are, and it's few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
It's few and
Yeah.
far between.
And I think that kind of comes from boxing in your relationships. Because there's some people that you may have been involved with ministry, like that was y'all's focal point. That's how y'all
Hmm.
became friends. But in other areas of your life, they may not necessarily be invited to those parts.
True.
Or it could be like, or
True.
work friend, work friends where you could be like, y'all chop it up all the time at work, but then once you hit the clock or you clock out or whatever it looks like and you go your separate ways, the intimate parts of you that work friend or that ministry friend may not necessarily ever see.
Yeah, and I think that has. I mean, if you really, really want to think about it, that has to deal with like how transparent and vulnerable are you willing to be? Because we could talk at work, and if we talk outside of work, then I'm letting you into my space. I'm letting you into like my, oh, I'm not your coworker. Like it's a different kind of vibe, which a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to do. Like y'all can hang out after work, go to movies or whatever y'all do, but then there's still that thing like, all right, I'll see you in the morning. Did I say
Hmm.
something off? What did I?
Or even the aspect where it's where it's like you may have this work persona that does not exist outside of work, and then you and your colleague hang, and it could be dang, I didn't know Esther got down like that outside of work,
Okay.
or or the other extreme where you're saying like I didn't know they were like that like it's just so many different variables.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
where it's the whenever you have just an organic friendship that you see the array. Like I
Oh
feel like
yeah.
you and some of my other friends, y'all see the array of my personality. When I'm in a
Yeah.
super good mood, when I'm silly, being goofy, when I'm serious, seeing me at my worst, seeing me as I grow and come into an optimized season, or
Mm-hmm.
seeing me like, oh, Marisha was really mad about that. Or,
Mm-hmm.
being able to just be the person that is like, Marisha, you tripping. And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and sometimes friendships that are in different capacities may not have the liberty to do that.
Yeah. That, and I think that's what you have to be very sensitive to or cognizant of. Like, is this, I mean, prayerful, honestly. Like, is this a person that God has placed in my life to be that kind of friend? Or is this a person that God has placed in my life that I need to be that kind of friend too? And understanding seasons, all that, because I think for me, considering my circumstances, sometimes I'd be like, nah, y'all not ready. And I'm aware of that. And I don't want to put that on anybody. But I also know I can be too cautious. I can be too private. So, because there's a situation right now where somebody texted me and I was like, "Hey, how can I pray for you?" And I told E, I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." He's like, "Did you not just pray for people in Jacksonville that you can be genuine?" I was like, "Yes, but I don't know."
By the way, E stands for Emmanuel, who is Esther's husband.
Yes.
So if we say E, we're talking about Emmanuel. That's the point of reference. But yeah, I think that does make sense. And I think sometimes once you learn the risk of being vulnerable, it does make it more challenging to be willing to have people in your space. Like you say, even when you said like just praying about people that in Jacksonville, it's like now I gotta get to know somebody new. Now I gotta see if I can trust them or not. Like it could be a little different. But even
Yeah.
what you were saying, like about grace, how do you feel like that shows up in everything that we've talked about? How do you feel like the grace shows up?
I mean, because you know me, I have to keep it Jesus. But I think about how often I'm like, all right, God, I'm gonna do this. Just like a friend would say, all right, I'm gonna be there.
Mm-hmm.
Or how often I say, I love you, God. I'm just in awe of you, or thank you, and I'm so grateful. And in the same essence, I can say, oh, I love you, friend. I'm so grateful for our relationship. But then I'll be like, God, oh yeah, I really prayed to you, pray with you in a few days, or really studied who you are. And in the same way, it's with friends like, dang, I really checked up on her. What is she like? What's her favorite color? And so I think in that way, I look at Jesus and he's still gracious. He's
Mm-hmm.
still with us. He's still going for us. He still calls us his friend. We might have to do some things to establish that deep connection. But it's like, man, if my friend is not texting me or calling me, but in my spirit, and she said something where I know it's a rough season, like, it's okay. Like, I'm gonna show her grace, and I would like to receive the same grace. If there's a situation that she brings to me, and I'm like, oh snap, this chick done lost her mind. But at the same time, I have done some stuff, and God's like, that was mad shady, and He still is like forgiveness. Like, do I offer the same? Not related to it being against me, but just like, you know what? All right, you finished? Yes, you screwed up. How can I help you? Like, what can I help you do to turn the other way? So I think that's the grace to fail, the grace to be ugly, the grace to be rude, the grace to be mean, understanding that you need the same grace. And I
Yeah.
know there's like, you can be mean, but don't cross this line, chick.
Yeah, I mean, everything has its boundaries where it's point of that's too much. But just like what, Esther was a little edgy today. I'm not even gonna check her today because I know that she's been going through a lot. But if it happens
Yes.
again, no, I'm just playing. But but just and I think part of that too, like, comes from building relationship in the
Mhm.
friendships where we know that each other may not be having the best day. Or
Yeah.
like you said, maybe in a rough season like this isn't normally how this person would respond to it. So it has to be something that's going on. And instead of feeling like I need to like match your effort or match your
Mm.
vibe or come at you like you come at me and give it back at you, I think part of that comes into like knowing relationships, knowing
Yeah.
like knowing the person's not necessarily their heart, but just knowing that this isn't the norm.
Yeah. And as a believer, for me, a lot of times God will be like, call Risha, text Risha. And there's been times when I've told you, I was like, or you call me about something and you tell me the time frame, and I'm like, dang, I was supposed to text you and call you, and I didn't. And I think that is even proof of like this being a God ordained friendship and giving God your friendships. Like, God, is this whatever? Because I think it'll help us maneuver like how to help each other.
As a believer, I think that's one of the bomb aspects of having friends that are other believers, where it's like you don't just having someone that's spirit led, where I may not even have the capacity to text you and tell you what's going on, or it may just be so sensitive that I can't talk about it. But
Right.
but having someone that is like connected to God, like I need to pray for her.
Yeah. And even
Without,
if you, yeah. And even if you're not, because I mean, not all my friends are believers.
yeah,
But in those situations, I'm very clear about what the purpose of that friendship is. And there'll be times where it's like, all right, you need to pray for so and so. And I'll be like, okay. And then just in casual conversation, they'll bring up the situation and be like, okay. And I think that is just an opportunity for others, for them to be like, this is going back to that grace thing. Like, Esther or Risha showed me grace in that situation. And I've been learning about grace, or I feel like grace in this, like, oh, this leads to Jesus, leads to, other
hmm
things. I think we just have to be really careful with our friendships and the intentionality of them.
So what about, what do you call them, like non-negotiables, or like what in your book? And I don't think we've ever talked about this, but what are things when you're like, we definitely cannot continue to be friends at this, because this has happened. We definitely
Mhm.
can't be friends after this. Because this has happened, our friendship would
Mhm.
certainly not be the same after this.
I think for me, it's gotta be gossip. That's a big one for me. If I shared something with you, like truly vulnerable with either like my personal life, my family life, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes to the surface that it's been shared with others, or because this has happened before, and they don't, yeah, and it's like, oh, I didn't say anything, but I was like, I think you did because this person came to me and said the same exact words. So I think that's a big one for me. And I know it might not be Christian like, but it's just that's a deal breaker. It's just that
Deal
hurts in
breaker,
my
that's the word I was looking for.
yeah, that's it. That one hurts because I've cast my pearls. I realized, oh, I cast them before swine. All right, moving on.
Went from a friend to swine. um,
Oh, yeah. I
okay.
think also too. I don't know. This should be obvious, but if you come physically or any kind of way for my kids or Eve, then that's just not. That's a deal breaker.
I think for me, it's probably inauthentic in how would you say it?
And authenticity.
Inauthenticity and that inauthenticity. Like if I realize that I can't trust you because you're not your real self, that may
Hmm.
not necessarily be a deal breaker where we can't be friends, but it definitely changes the friendship. Like
Yeah.
I like to think about my relationships like the inner courts, the outer courts, and the holies of holies. Not to
Yes.
say that I'm like holiest of holies in any way, but like you definitely going outer court. No questions asked.
Yes. So I
It's
think
outer
that
court.
has to be a preference. Like there are levels. Like I tell my
Hmm.
kids all the time, like, cause they're like, "Oh, I saw my friend on the playground." Really? Wait, what's their name? I don't know. Y'all go to school together? No. When did y'all just on the playground? I'm like, okay. So there are levels of what we say friends are. You know what I mean? Like associates, friends, your sis. Like, so I think for me, you do move, like you said. You definitely move if one of those things occurs. And I was just, you know what though? Because you know the scripture that talks about like living in peace with all people. That doesn't necessarily mean like having a friendship or whatever with all people. I think that has to
Hmm.
speak to like kindness.
I agree. I think one of the things that I probably got wrong earlier in relationships was making everybody a friend.
Mm,
It's even like in the kingdom, we have to love one another. We do have to be
right.
kind to one another. And the Bible does tell us that every opportunity that we have to do good, especially for believers, so we should be supporting and, helping each
Right.
other. But there are also like personality traits and hobbies and stuff that formulate into like relationships. So I don't think that it necessarily means that we're friends because we love one another and show kindness or have a
Exactly.
couple of things in common.
Right.
That was one of the things that I had to learn was like
Yeah.
everybody's not a friend, and not to feel uncomfortable with. It's kind of like the era we came up in. You like I
Mhm.
don't have friends, I have associates.
Yes.
Like being okay with saying to these person, we're not friends, we're colleagues. We're not
Right.
friends, but we do, we interact from time to time where that that's the homie. It's
Yes.
an associate, and being okay with not feeling pressure, whether it's internal or external, to have to say that a relationship is something that it's not.
And especially when that relationship changes, it could be like, oh yeah, aren't you and so and friends? We're like being okay with saying no or not. We're really like distant friends or old friends or associates or whatever. I think that's something for me I've had to just like really sit back and look at the fruit of my friendships. First, look at Esther because Esther don't always do well with taking care of other people that are not in my family. And so, like, Esther, have you been intentional with reaching out, with praying for, with offering opportunities of extending yourself? Like, look at myself first. And then look at, okay, all these people that you call friends, let's look at the fruit that has occurred within the last, whatever time frame. And being honest and with yourself and adjusting.
For sure. And I think one of the things that I'm learning, and it probably does tie into grace, is like looking at how I show up too.
Yes.
It's like not sometimes we can look at relationships one sided. Oh well, me and that person, we're not friends no more because they never did this or they always did that, but not really considering like, well, Marisha, what were you doing? Or
Exactly.
how like were there any times where you didn't show up where you should have, or were there times that you didn't make them feel how you felt like they should have made you feel?
Right. 'Cause everybody doesn't, everybody's not rich.
Hmm. And everyone doesn't. Everyone doesn't. I think like out there, I'm a dreamer, but everyone doesn't process stuff the same way. Even out to
They,
like love, love languages and stuff like that.
right.
Like, I tell all my friends and family, I love you. I want everybody to know if I love you, I want you to know that I love you. There's no question about it.
Right.
But then there are other people that they may not tell me that they love me, but they'll just chime in with a text message
Right.
or just grab me something to eat or
That's,
let's go and
yeah.
grab something to eat. And it took a while for me to understand like that's because they love you. Everybody not gonna say it and write it like you.
Right.
So, being able to accept differences in how people show up because there
Yes.
may be honest attempts.
Yes. Yes. I have to look at, and I see it in my kids. Like, I like to cuddle. I love to cuddle. Some of my kids are like, Mom, why? And so I've been like, okay, my name is Esther. This is what I do. Their name is so and so. Like, what is it that makes up their love language? And meeting them, like you said, where they are. I think what happens is our egos. I think our egos get in the way, and we focus so much on like, how have I been taken care of, and
Mhm.
what do I like, versus being like the servant. Like I came to serve. Like I came to love you, which means asking myself, how do you like to be loved? Like, how do you need me to show? I think one question you always ask me is, oh my gosh,
How can I support you?
how can I support you? Yes. And that question always used to stop me. I'm like, chick, you 2.5 hours away. What you mean? And I think even your housemate asked me this. And a guy was like, just say it. And I was like, honestly, I don't feel like cooking. She's like, all right, I'm gonna send you some money for pizza. And I was like, I started crying. But it's one of those things where like, how can I support you? Like, how do you need or feel like you can be supported? And yeah, we just gotta get rid of our egos sometimes.
Mhm. In both capacities. I think one of the things I have a piece that I wrote that says something like how my pride lit the match and basically like burned the bridge to some invaluable
Oh,
relationships. And it's
yes.
like I'm tired of always being the only person that reaches out, or like I'm tired of being the only person that has to come back and apologize. Like just somehow sometimes where like you said, pride does get in the way sometimes of being able to just keep growing and keep loving.
Yeah. And I, I should have prefaced this by saying like, I'm gonna go ahead and say anything that I say in this recording, I probably changed my mind in about a year. But I think that's the beauty of not salvation. Salvation is the sanctification. Like I have that grace to do that. But honestly, that's where I'm like trying to like God, I'm always the one. I'm always the one. I'm always the one. He's like, and I was like, isn't there a limit? Isn't there boundaries? And I think there are, but I can honestly say like I haven't quite grasped that. Like you will tell you I am the first to apologize. Like if I'm wrong, like I tell you, if I'm wrong, call me out. Like I'm not always the one offended. I can be the offender, trust.
Mhm.
But I need you to tell me. Like I have no problems and I'll apologize. But if my apology is not sufficient for you and not you don't want, that's fine. Like, just let me know. Like, where am I? And I think my husband was like, babe, everybody's not like that. They can't communicate
Mm-hmm.
that no, they don't no longer want to be in a friendship, or they can't communicate, I need you to do or be XYZ, or this hurt me. I was like, can I
That's
try?
I don't know because I have like my ace. One of the things I tell her is like, if we can't tell each other the truth and keep it real, then we're not aces.
Well,
And that even shows up in our friendship. Like you remember one of the times I was just wilding, and you just sent me a text like, "Cut it out. This is what the enemy is trying to do, and you need to respond accordingly." And so it's like, if y'all can't tell me that type of stuff, then are y'all really my friends? I tell my mom sometimes, like, Mom, if I can't tell you, who can I tell? Like
yes,
it has to be somebody in your life
yes,
that you can, I guess, like receive and feel safe enough to understand that this person is telling you this for their own
you
good.
said the words safe. That is the
Yeah,
word.
safety is huge for me these days, and I didn't realize how important it was and how it, like the need for it manifested in other relationships probably to like a year ago.
Yes. And that's probably the word I wanted to use when you asked me, like, what are my deal breakers if I don't feel safe with you?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that has to do with like my past experiences just personally in my home and whatever. But yeah, if I don't feel safe with you emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, that's like my inner court circle. That's like you and a couple others. But yeah, if I don't, no, the title has been changed.
So my other question is, do you feel like, because I think you and I are both really big on communicating, but do you feel like breakups, like official breakups, are necessary in friendships? Do you feel like the conversation is necessary? Or do you feel like it's just kind of like, you could take a hint? Like, what do you think
Oh,
is necessary?
I feel like they are. I
Okay.
have been told that that's a high expectation
Okay.
because, like you said, we are communicative people.
Hmm.
I don't know if
Hmm.
I said that, but and this is a conversation I had to have manual because I was just hurt, and it wasn't just within the last few years. I realized it's from transitions in friendships and in ministry from years ago when people would leave the church or there was like a church split or anything like that. Like those were hard. And I realized it was hard because nobody said goodbye. Nobody said I'm leaving. Nobody put a period on the end of the sentence. I don't care
Hmm.
what you said after that. Like I needed closure. So
Okay.
I feel like breakups communicated breakups are great for me. However, for other people, it's hard. It's difficult. It's confrontational. It's the reality of this is happening. Yeah. So that's my opinion.
One of the things you said that you may feel differently in a year, I'm going to borrow that because I feel like after today, I could feel very different in a year. But as of today, I agree with you.
Hmm.
Some friendships that changed or dissolved, I would have felt much better if you had a conversation about
Keyword is some. Some.
it.
Because there are some friendships and relationships that can be so toxic that there does not need to be a conversation.
That's true.
Like, that is a flee situation. That is a you need to be hid in the secret place situation because of their
Hmm.
circumstance. So
That's true.
keyword on that, I agree. It's
Okay. So I want to tell you thank you for just, I guess, publicly saying thank you for being my friend.
thank
Like,
you,
not, yeah, yeah, you was about to let the world know how you get down. But
radio.
thank you, like for real, thank you for being my authentic friend that I can be myself with in whatever capacity. Whether it's I'm not so much in a good place or I'm in a good place. Like I need prayer or I can offer prayer. Or I can do both. Whatever that looks like, just thank you for being my authentic
Yes, I have to say the same. I'm reflecting on the last, because the last 3 years have been rough in this area, or four. What year is it?
friend.
Oh my gosh.
2025.
Yes. A few years have been rough, and I was sitting there reflecting, and I was like, man, God, thank you for Marisha. And it was like less than the fingers on my hand, other people that I've been able to heal well with and allow them to enter into these very private, very not so Christian like areas and just be able to be honest about something like out loud and process it. Because I didn't even think about that one night we were at Kava in the car with with Shar,
hmm
and like the weight I felt to expose something and the freedom I felt after it. Like that
hmm
is, oh my God, you put these people in my life right when I needed them. Out of the blue. Because I mean, we've seen each other. Like
hmm
we had, like all of our people were the same.
We had a lot of like I always think about Venn diagrams. Like we had friends that we were
Yep.
friends of friends. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm so grateful for you. I'm so like, if I say I'm talking to Risha, I'm gonna be outside in the car for like 2 hours.
That part.
So I'm grateful. Thank you for sticking around.
Yes, ma'am. Likewise. That's my first thank you. My second thank you is thank you for being willing to join me on this podcast, which is a
Hey,
part of my journey. I appreciate it. So as we transition to our conclusion, do you want to do a shameless plug? Is there anything that you want to let people know about?
my social media life has become very, very different. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's life with underscore Esther. Other than that, yeah, I I really my main thing with friendship is really, really one, develop a relationship and friendship with Christ. Like I promise you that that's not the best decision ever. I don't know it is. So definitely like just evaluate God and Jesus and Holy Spirit and tap into that too is to allow God to like hand your relationship over to God. Because I promise you, if you ask, He will answer. And it may
hmm
not always be the answers that we want, but it's not for any detriment of your own. It's always for your good. And then just be led by the Spirit, like putting aside my personality, quote unquote, and
hmm
operating in the Spirit. Because if it were up to Esther, come on. Yes, but because I choose not to always act that way sometimes, I think that's been beneficial. So, yeah.
Sure. Is that like your final thought that you want to leave with the listeners?
Yes, I kind of combined all of it. I did not follow the outline.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for joining. I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to another episode of Big Mama Was Wrong. Have a great day. If you've liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more people who might benefit from these type of conversations. Also, we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions about today's episode. Reach out on Instagram at Marisha Cares or send an email to contact@callmarisha.com. Your feedback and stories are always welcome. Last, make sure you check out show notes for inspirational bonuses.